All right, listeners, ready to dive deep into this blood flow restriction training stuff? BFR. You guys sent in a ton of research on it, so let's see what it's all about. Is it going to revolutionize how we train, or is this just another fitness fad?
Well, it's definitely got people talking. That's for sure. And we're going to break down why. Basically, BFR training is all about, well, restricting blood flow to the muscles while you're exercising. But before you start picturing like tourniquets, it's important to note this is a very controlled technique. When it's done right, it's actually really safe.
Okay, so how does restricting blood flow actually lead to any results?
All right, so imagine you're like partially closing a valve on a pipe, right? You're not cutting off the flow completely, but you're creating a bit of a backup. In this case, the pipe is your vein. And we're slowing down the blood, going back to the heart, not the fresh blood coming in. This creates a really unique environment in your muscles, causes this buildup of metabolites, and it's this change that triggers a whole cascade of physiological responses.
Interesting. So where do you even put these bands, and how tight are we talking? You know, asking for a friend who might be picturing some DIY BFR experiment gone wrong.
Right. Well, that's why it's key to have some professional guidance. Typically, you place the bands like at the top of your limbs, so near your groin for legs and close to your armpit for your arms. The pressure should be firm, but definitely not painful. We use a scale from 0 to 10, 10 being tourniquet level, obviously, and you're aiming for a 7 out of 10 for arms, and 8 or 9 for legs. But this can vary a bit depending on the person, so that's why a proper assessment is so important.
Gotcha. So all this talk about restricted blood flow and metabolite buildup, does this actually mean faster muscle growth? Is BFR the secret to getting jacked?
Well, that's the question everyone wants answered, right? This is where we got to separate the hype from the actual science. BFR can definitely contribute to muscle growth, but research shows it's not really any better than traditional heavy lifting when it comes to hypertrophy.
Really? But what about that crazy pump everyone's always talking about?
Oh, the pump is definitely real, don't get me wrong. But a good pump doesn't always equal more muscle. There's been tons of studies on this, like Lowry Luber's Yamanaka Cook. They've looked at both BFR-only training and BFR combined with lifting heavy, and the results are pretty consistent. BFR does lead to muscle growth, but not significantly more than just lifting heavy weights on its own.
Okay, so if it's not some magic shortcut to bigger muscles, why even bother with BFR?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. All the hype about BFR for size might be a bit overblown, but the research on strength gains, that's where BFR really shines.
Now you've got my attention.
Right.
How does restricting blood flow make you stronger?
All right, think about this. Strength isn't just about how big your muscles are, it's also about neural factors. Basically, how efficiently your nervous system can activate and use your muscle fibers. Even when you're using lighter weights, BFR can activate your muscles to a similar level as lifting heavy. It's almost like it's tricking your nervous system into thinking you're working with a much heavier load.
So it's like BFR amplifies the signal from your brain to your muscles.
Exactly. That's why adding BFR to a heavy lifting routine can actually lead to even bigger strength increases than just lifting heavy alone. It's like you're getting a bonus boost to your training.
Wow, so you're saying we're getting those heavy lifting benefits without having to actually lift heavy all the time?
That's the idea behind something called free volume. It's a really powerful tool, especially for athletes. You get the strength stimulus without the same muscle damage and without needing as much recovery time as heavy lifting.
Okay, hold on. More strength gains, potentially less recovery time, and we can use lighter weights. Tell me more about this free volume thing.
Imagine you're an athlete and you're in a tough training block. You need to manage your fatigue levels and recover properly. BFR lets you keep building strength even when you can't push those heavy weights.
So it's like a strategic tool to get the most out of your training, especially when things get really demanding.
Exactly. There was this study by O'Halloran that showed replacing some of your heavy training with BFR actually led to similar strength increases. That's the beauty of BFR. It's really versatile. You can use it in so many different training scenarios.
So BFR isn't just about building muscle. It's not even just about strength. It's about maximizing your potential and adapting to the needs of your training. This is way more nuanced than I thought.
Oh, and we've only scratched the surface. There's a lot of research coming out now that suggests BFR could be huge for injury recovery and for preventing muscle atrophy.
Wait, there's more. This BFR rabbit hole is getting deeper by the minute.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating area of research with so much potential. We'll dive into all those details next time. So you mentioned injury recovery and preventing muscle atrophy. What's the connection with BFR there?
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about. It seems like a big jump from using BFR to get stronger or bigger to actually helping with injuries.
Right. It might seem counterintuitive, I guess, but there's more and more research showing how much potential BFR has for rehabbing injuries. One area where it's really showing promise is speeding up recovery after surgery.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
Like what kind of examples are we talking?
There was a study on people recovering from ACL reconstruction surgery. The patients who used BFR as part of their rehab, they actually recovered faster. And they had better muscle function compared to the group that didn't use it.
So it helped them regain strength and mobility in their knee quicker. That's huge for athletes who want to get back in the game.
Exactly. And BFR isn't just good after surgery, it can also help prevent muscle atrophy. You know, when you lose muscle mass, especially if you're injured or can't move much.
Oh yeah, I've been there. After I sprained my ankle, I lost so much muscle in my calf just from not being able to use it properly.
Right, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Not being able to move leads to muscle loss pretty quickly. But that's where BFR comes in. You can actually prevent that.
Yeah.
Even without exercise, just by putting on the cuffs for short periods. It's called passive BFR or PBFR.
Hold on. You're telling me that just wearing the bands can help you keep your muscle? That sounds too good to be true.
I know it sounds surprising, but the research is pretty solid. It's like this. PBFR kind of mimics something called ischemic preconditioning, which basically triggers processes in your cells that protect against muscle breakdown. It's almost like putting your muscles on pause, even when you're not using them.
That's incredible. So even if you're stuck in a cast or you can't exercise because of an injury,
Yeah.
BFR can help you prevent muscle loss.
Exactly. It's a game changer for anyone dealing with an injury or limited mobility. It gives you a way to keep your muscles healthy, even when times are tough.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the muscle benefits. But you mentioned before that BFR could also be good for your heart. That's a whole other thing to explore.
Right, it is. Most of the research on BFR has focused on what it does to your muscles. But now researchers are getting really interested in how BFR affects your cardiovascular system.
So how does restricting blood flow in your limbs affect your heart?
Well, think about it. If you're working out with BFR, your heart has to work harder to pump blood through those constricted vessels.
Oh, right, like trying to push water through a narrower pipe. You need more pressure.
Exactly. That extra workload on your heart, even with lighter exercises, can actually lead to some good adaptations over time. Some studies suggest that BFR training might improve your cardiac output. You know, the amount of blood your heart pumps each minute.
So we're potentially making our heart stronger. That's pretty amazing. But is it risky to intentionally make your heart work harder like that?
That's why it's so important to do BFR with a qualified professional. They can keep an eye on your heart rate and blood pressure to make sure you're staying within safe limits, and anyone who has any heart conditions, they need to be extra careful and talk to their doctor before trying BFR.
Right, safety first. So it sounds like BFR is doing more than just making our muscles work harder. It might also be giving our hearts a good workout.
Exactly, and there's even some early research that suggests BFR might improve how well your blood vessels work, which could mean better circulation and overall heart health.
Wow. So BFR might be this multifaceted tool that improves both our muscles and our cardiovascular system.
It's a really exciting area of research, and we're still just scratching the surface of what BFR can do. It really shows you how connected all the systems in our body are, and how something that affects your muscles can actually have a big impact on your heart and blood vessels.
This is starting to sound like some next level biohacking stuff, not just a workout. So how would someone actually start using BFR in their training?
Well, it depends on their goals and what kind of training they're already doing. Some people use BFR as their main workout, and some people just add it to their strength training routine.
So it's pretty flexible.
Yeah.
But is it for everyone? Or there are certain people who would benefit more from BFR?
BFR is generally safe for healthy people, but it's always a good idea to talk to a qualified professional. They can make sure it's right for you. Athletes might find BFR especially helpful for getting stronger and recovering faster, especially during those tough training periods.
So we've talked about the good stuff. But are there any downsides to BFR? Or things to watch out for?
That's a good question. It's important to look at both sides. One thing to think about is the discomfort. Some people don't like the feeling of restricted blood flow, especially when they're first starting out.
Yeah, I can imagine it takes some getting used to. Anything else?
Another thing is the equipment. BFR bands and cuffs are pretty affordable and easy to take with you, but you got to use them the right way and take care of them. If you use equipment that's damaged or worn out, you're more likely to have problems. So it's worth investing in good quality BFR stuff.
So no DIYing it with rubber bands from your desk drawer.
Haha, definitely not. And the last thing to remember is that BFR isn't magic. It can help you get better results from your training, but it's not a replacement for good exercise technique. a good training program, and good recovery.
Got it. So BFR is a powerful tool when you use it right, but you got to be careful and have some guidance.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to work with a professional, someone who really understands BFR, so you can get the most out of it without any risks.
This has been really eye-opening. We've covered a lot about BFR, the science behind it, the benefits, the limitations.
And we're just getting started. There's still so much to learn about BFR.
Well, let's keep digging. What else have you got for us?
You mentioned the BFR can be used in a bunch of different ways. So how are people actually using it in their workouts?
Well, one way is to use it for those accessory exercises. You know, the smaller movements that target specific muscle groups, like bicep curls, tricep extensions, calf raises, that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay. So instead of going heavy on those isolation exercises, you're using BFR to get a similar effect with lighter weights.
Exactly. It lets you really hit those muscles hard without needing to load up a barbell, which can be a good thing for preventing overuse injuries, especially if you're already lifting heavy on those big compound lifts.
That makes sense. Kind of like a 2-for-1 deal, strength gains and injury prevention. You also mentioned that you can combine BFR with cardio. How does that work?
That's another area where BFR is showing some real promise. Researchers are finding that if you combine BFR with low-intensity cardio, like walking or cycling, you can actually get better cardiovascular adaptations and even some muscle growth.
So are you saying instead of running a marathon to get those cardio benefits, you could just go for a walk with BFR cuffs on?
Well, it's not quite that simple. But yeah, BFR can definitely make even low-intensity cardio more effective. So it might be a good option for people who don't have a lot of time or want to avoid high-impact exercise.
That's wild. It seems like BFR could be useful for just about anyone. Athletes, people who want to improve their heart health, even people who just want to maintain muscle mass when they're not very active.
It really is a versatile tool. But just like with any training technique, it's super important to get proper guidance and education.
Absolutely. BFR is generally safe when you do it right, but there are some things to keep in mind, like how much pressure to use, choosing the right exercises, and paying attention to how your body responds.
And that's where working with a qualified professional is key. They can figure out what you need, give you personalized advice, and make sure you're using BFR safely and effectively.
Couldn't agree more. So for our listeners who are interested in trying BFR, what's the best way to get started?
First things first, talk to a knowledgeable fitness pro or doctor. They can tell you if BFR is right for you and help you create a plan.
And don't forget about the equipment. Quality is important when it comes to BFR cuffs or bands. Get something from a reputable brand.
Right, safety first.
Yeah.
You want equipment that's going to give you precise pressure and consistent restriction.
Exactly. Once you've got the right gear and some guidance, start slow and gradually add BFR into your training. Listen to your body and don't push through any pain or discomfort.
Well, this has been a deep dive into the world of blood flow restriction training. We've talked about the science behind it, the benefits, the limitations. We even busted some myths about how it builds muscle.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey. BFR is really changing how we think about human physiology, and it's opening up all sorts of new possibilities for improving our health and performance.
And remember, BFR is just a tool. And like any tool, it works best when you use it correctly and you know what you're doing. So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing your limits. But do it safely and effectively, of course.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Who knows what other exciting discoveries are out there waiting for us in the world of fitness and exercise science? The future is full of possibilities.